My name is Emily Carter, and I'm 36 years old. For most of my life, I believed family meant loyalty, protection, and unconditional love. I was the daughter who showed up, the one who helped with groceries, remembered birthdays, and sat through endless hospital visits when Dad got sick. My younger brother Matt. He was the golden child who could do no wrong, even when he did everything wrong. But I never imagined my own mother would look me in the eye and destroy me with 4 cold words. Not a single dime. That moment changed everything. It wasn't just about money or inheritance. It was about being erased, dismissed, and humiliated in front of people I'd known my whole life. But here's the thing about being underestimated. It gives you space to move in silence. And when I finally asked my mother one simple question, her face went pale, her hands started shaking, and I knew something was terribly, deeply wrong. This is the story of how I lost everything and won it all back. The dining room smelled like roasted chicken and lies. I sat at Mom's table surrounded by aunts, uncles, and cousins I barely saw anymore. Everyone was laughing, passing dishes, pretending we were the perfect family. Then Mom stood up, glass in hand, and smiled that smile, the one that never reached her eyes. "I have an announcement," she said cheerfully. "I've rewritten my will." The room went quiet. I felt my stomach drop. "Everything, the house, the savings, your father's business shares. It's all going to Matt." She turned to me, her voice like ice. "Emily, you're getting nothing. Not a single dime." My face burned. Relatives stared. Some looked shocked. Others looked away. Matt smirked from across the table, arms crossed like he'd already won. I should have screamed. I should have cried. Instead, I stayed calm and asked one question. "When exactly did you change the will, Mom?" Her smile faltered. Her hand, the one holding the glass, started shaking. Matt's smirk vanished. He shot her a panicked look. That's when I knew. Something was very, very wrong. I excused myself and walked outside. The cool air hit my face, but it didn't stop the heat rising in my chest. My mother never shook. Not during Dad's funeral. Not during her surgery last year. She was the woman who stayed composed through hurricanes. So why was her hand trembling now? I replayed the moment in my mind. The way she hesitated before answering. The way Matt's eyes went wide. The way she looked at him like she was asking permission. The door slammed behind me. Matt stormed out, face red, fists clenched. "You just had to ruin everything, didn't you?" he hissed. "Ruin what, Matt?" "This whole dinner." Mom made her decision. Accept it. When did she make it? I asked calmly. He froze for just a second, long enough for me to catch it. "Months ago," he said quickly. "Right after Dad died." But inside, Mom had said recently. The dates didn't match. Matt realized his mistake the second the words left his mouth. He turned and walked back inside without another word. I stood there, heart pounding, knowing one thing for sure. Matt was lying. The next morning, I drove to Mrs. Donnelly's house. She'd been our neighbor for 20 years and knew everything that happened on our street. If anyone had seen something strange, it would be her. She opened the door slowly, her face kind but cautious. "Emily, sweetheart. I heard about last night." Course she had. Small towns didn't keep secrets. "Can I ask you something?" said. "Has Matt been around Mom's house a lot lately?" Mrs. Donnelly hesitated, then sighed. "Come inside." She made tea and sat across from me, hands wrapped around her cup. "He's been there almost every day," she admitted. "Handling her finances, he says. He told people you were taking advantage of her, Emily. That you were asking for money constantly." My blood went cold. "That's not true." "I didn't think so," she said gently. "But he's been very convincing." She paused, then leaned forward. "I heard him on the phone once, standing on your mother's porch. He said, 'She'll never see a cent if I play this right.'" The room spun. Matt wasn't just manipulating Mom. He was destroying me in the process. I scheduled a meeting with Mr. Harrison, the family's accountant for over 30 years. He was a quiet man who measured every word carefully. When I arrived at his office, he looked nervous. "Emily, I can't share specific details," he said. "Client confidentiality." "I'm not asking for details," I replied. "I just want to know if something seems off." He adjusted his glasses and stared at his desk. "Let me say this carefully. After your father passed, certain financial arrangements changed hands. Paperwork I used to handle went to someone else. Matt." He didn't confirm, but his silence said everything. "There have been withdrawals," he continued slowly. "Large ones, frequent ones, and the signatures on some documents." He trailed off. "What about them?" He looked at me directly for the first time. "Follow the withdrawals, Emily. That's all I can say." I left his office with a sick feeling in my stomach. Someone was draining Mom's accounts, and I was being set up to take the blame. The bank was cold and sterile, filled with people who didn't know our family's history. I approached the counter calmly, asking to access my mother's account information. The teller, a young woman named Sarah, shook her head apologetically. "I'm sorry, but only authorized users can access that account." "Who's authorized?" She glanced at her screen. "Your brother, Matt Carter." Course. I thanked her and turned to leave, but she called after me quietly. "Miss Carter." She looked around nervously. "Your brother was here last week." Again. Again. She lowered her voice. "He comes in almost weekly. Last time he made an urgent cash withdrawal. $10,000. My heart stopped. Matt told the family he hadn't touched Mom's accounts in months. He said he was protecting her savings. "When was this?" "Yes. 3 days ago. 3 days before the dinner. 3 days before Mom announced I was getting nothing." The timing wasn't a coincidence. I didn't plan to confront Matt so soon, but rage has a way of overriding logic. I found him at his apartment, cocky as ever, leaning against the doorframe like he owned the world. "What do you want, Emily?" "I want to know why you're lying." His face darkened. "Lying about what?" "The bank, Matt. The withdrawals. The fake story about me taking advantage of Mom." He stepped forward, trying to intimidate me. "You're stalking me now. That's pathetic. You took $10,000 3 days ago." His eyes flickered just for a second. "That's none of your business. It is when you're stealing from our mother." He exploded. "I'm not stealing. I'm protecting what's mine. Mom signed everything over because you weren't around. You abandoned her." The accusation stung because it was so absurdly false. I'd been there every single week. Matt barely called, but his defensiveness told me everything. He wasn't just lying. He was terrified I'd figure out the truth. I turned and walked away. Every word he screamed behind me just confirmation that I was right. 2 days later, I visited the house when I knew Mom would be at her book club. The key still worked. She hadn't changed the locks yet. The house felt hollow without Dad, like all the warmth had been buried with him. I went straight to his old office. The desk was still covered in his things. Pens, notepads, a framed photo of our family from 10 years ago. I opened the bottom drawer carefully. Inside was a folder labeled, Estate Planning. My hands shook as I pulled it out. Inside was a draft of the original will, dated 2 months before Dad died. It was clear, typed, and notarized. Everything was divided equally between Matt and me. The house, the savings, the business shares. 50-50. Exactly as it should be. This was proof. Proof that Dad never intended the inequality Mom announced. But when I flipped to the final page, my stomach dropped. The signature page was missing. Someone had removed it. And I had a sickening feeling I knew exactly who. The trust attorney's office smelled like old paper and expensive wood. Claire Whitman was sharp, professional, and didn't waste time on pleasantries. I laid everything in front of her. The draft will, the timeline, the bank withdrawals, Mr. Harrison's warning. She studied the documents carefully, then looked up. "This is textbook undue influence," she said. The timing, the missing signature, the financial activity. It all points to manipulation. Can we prove it? We need more. But this is a strong start. A pause. Emily, have you checked on your mother's mental state recently? The question hit me like cold water. What do you mean? If your mother was vulnerable, cognitively or emotionally, when she signed the new will, it could be challenged. Claire leaned forward. Has she seemed different? I thought about the shaking hands, the hesitation, the way she looked at Matt for approval. I don't know, I admitted. But I'm going to find out. I scheduled Mom's annual checkup under the guise of being a concerned daughter. Dr. Peters had been her physician for 15 years. When I arrived at the clinic, she pulled me aside privately. Emily, I'm glad you came. I've been worried about your mother. Worried how? Dr. Peters lowered her voice. She's showing early signs of cognitive decline. Nothing severe, but her memory is inconsistent, and she's more easily confused than before. My chest tightened. Is it serious? Not yet. But any major financial or legal decisions should be scrutinized carefully. She's vulnerable right now. The word vulnerable echoed in my head. Does Matt know? Yes. Dr. Peters hesitated. He was here during her last appointment. I mentioned my concerns. So Matt knew. He knew Mom was struggling and he used it. He exploited her confusion to rewrite the will in his favor. My brother wasn't just greedy. He was a predator. I thanked Dr. Peters and walked out into the parking lot, numb with fury. Matt had crossed a line I didn't even know existed. I approached Mom gently the next afternoon, sitting beside her on the porch where we used to talk for hours. Mom, how are you feeling? Really? She looked tired, older than I remembered. I'm fine, sweetheart. Dr. Peters mentioned you've been forgetful. Her face crumpled slightly. I didn't want anyone to worry. Mom, when you changed the will, were you sure that's what you wanted? For a moment, just a moment, guilt flashed across her face. I didn't want trouble, she whispered. Trouble from who? Before she could answer, the front door slammed open. Matt stormed onto the porch, face red with rage. What are you doing here? Talking to Mom. You mean manipulating her? He grabbed Mom's arm, not gently. She winced, and something inside me snapped. Let go of her, Matt. He ignored me, pulling her toward the door. Come on, Mom. Emily's just trying to confuse you. But I saw it. The fear in her eyes. The way she pulled back slightly. Matt wasn't protecting her. He was controlling her. I wasn't alone. Over the next week, I reached out to people who knew our family. People who'd seen things but stayed silent. Dad's former business partner, Tom, met me for coffee. I always thought Matt was too interested in the money, he admitted. Your dad was worried about it before he died. Mrs. Donnelly gave me a written statement about Matt's behavior and the phone call she overheard. My Aunt Linda, Mom's sister, pulled me aside at the grocery store. I saw papers in Matt's car once. They said power of attorney draft on them. Power of attorney. If Matt had gotten Mom to sign that, he'd control everything. Her money, her property, her medical decisions. Everything. I compiled the statements carefully. Each one another piece of evidence. Matt thought he was untouchable. He was wrong. I went to the county clerk's office and requested records of any power of attorney filings under my mother's name. The clerk searched, then frowned. There's an attempted filing here, but it was rejected. Why? Incomplete signatures. The notary refused to certify it. Relief and rage flooded through me simultaneously. Matt had tried to file a POA and failed. But the attempt alone was damning. Claire, my attorney, reviewed the document copy. This lists Matt as sole financial controller, she said. If this had gone through, your mother would have had no say in her own finances. Can we use this? Absolutely. This shows intent to control and manipulate. It's exactly what we need. I stared at the paper, my brother's signature bold and confident at the bottom. He'd been planning this for months, maybe longer. And he'd almost succeeded. I tried one more time to reach Mom. I found her alone in the kitchen, hands wrapped around a coffee mug. Mom, I need you to listen to me. Emily, please. I can't handle this right now. Matt is lying to you. He's taking money. The door crashed open. Matt stormed in, slamming his hand on the table so hard the mug rattled. That's it. I'm done with this. He turned to Mom. She's trying to steal from you. Can't you see that? Mom looked between us, overwhelmed and confused. Matt, stop. No, he shouted. She's the problem. She's always been the problem. Mom stood shakily. Emily, I think you should go. The words shattered me. I looked at my mother, the woman who raised me, and saw a stranger. I turned and walked toward the door, vision blurred with tears. But as I stepped outside, I felt something pressed into my hand. Mom had slipped me an envelope. She didn't say a word, didn't look at me. But her message was clear. Help me. I opened the envelope in my car, hands trembling. Inside was a bank statement. Mom's personal account. My eyes scanned the page, stopping cold at the list of transactions. Transfer to Matt Carter. $5,000. Transfer to Matt Carter. $8,000. Transfer to Matt Carter. $10,000. The list went on. Tens of thousands of dollars, transferred over months. And at the bottom, dated just 2 days ago, another $12,000. This wasn't financial management. This was theft. Matt was draining Mom's account systematically, and she either didn't notice or was too confused to stop him. I took photos of every page, my hands shaking with rage and relief. This was the proof I needed. This was the smoking gun. But the most recent transaction, the one from 2 days ago, told me something worse. Matt wasn't slowing down. He was accelerating. And if I didn't stop him soon, there'd be nothing left. Claire Whitman studied the bank statement with the focus of a surgeon examining an X-ray. This is financial exploitation, she said finally. Clear, documented, and repeated. Combined with the cognitive decline, the missing will page, and the attempted POA, we have enough. Enough for what? To file a formal inquiry into undue influence and request the will be invalidated. My heart pounded. How long will that take? A few weeks for the hearing. But Emily, she looked at me seriously. Once we file, this becomes public. Your family will know. Your brother will fight back. Are you ready for that? I thought about Dad's draft will. About Mom's shaking hands. About Matt's smirk across the dinner table. Yes, I said. I'm ready. Claire nodded. Then let's do this right. Let's bring everything into the light. She began drafting the petition. For the first time in weeks, I felt something other than fear. Felt hope. The probate court scheduled a hearing for 3 weeks out. When Matt received the notice, he called me, laughing so hard I could barely understand him. You're pathetic, he said between gasps. You really think a judge will believe you? Mom signed the will. It's legal. You're wasting everyone's time. We'll see. You'll lose, Emily. And when you do, I'll make sure you never step foot in that house again. I hung up without responding. Let him think he'd won. Let him get comfortable. 2 days later, I received an anonymous text from an unknown number. Check the shed behind your mom's house. Tonight. Loan. I stared at the message, heart racing. Could be a trap. Could be nothing. But something told me it was important. That night I drove to the house. The shed was dark, tucked into the back corner of the yard. I used my phone's flashlight to see inside. There, hidden under old tarps and gardening tools, was a dusty cardboard box labeled, "Personal. Do not touch." I opened it carefully. Inside were folders, letters, and, my breath caught, a small video camera. The box was full of documents Dad had kept hidden. Original financial statements, notes about the business, and letters addressed to me and Matt individually. But the video camera was what stopped me cold. I turned it on. The battery was nearly dead, but there was one file saved, a recording dated 1 month before Dad died. Press play. Dad's face filled the screen, tired but clear-eyed. He was sitting in this same shed, the camera propped on a workbench. "If you're watching this, something went wrong," he began. "I'm making this because I need the truth recorded somewhere safe." My throat tightened. "I'm leaving everything split equally between Emily and Matt. 50-50. That's non-negotiable. If anyone tries to change that, if your mother is pressured, manipulated, or confused into altering the will, this video is proof of my true intent." He paused, looking directly into the camera. "Don't let anyone tell you I wanted anything different. Don't let pressure or manipulation win. The will is equal. It has to be." The video ended. I sat in the dark shed, tears streaming down my face, clutching the camera like it was Dad himself. This was it. This was everything. I made 3 copies of the video, one for Claire, one for safekeeping, and one to show Mom. The next afternoon, I went to the house while Matt was out. Mom was in the living room, staring blankly at the TV. "Mom, I need you to watch something." She looked up, confused but didn't argue. I connected the camera to the TV and pressed play. Dad's face appeared on the screen. Mom gasped, hand flying to her mouth. We watched together in silence. When it ended, Mom was sobbing, hands shaking. "He wanted it equal," she whispered. "He said equal. Matt told you something different, didn't he?" She nodded, tears streaming. "He said your father wanted him to lead the family. That I needed to trust him." "Mom," Matt lied. She covered her face. "I felt so guilty. I thought I was honoring your father's wishes." Before I could respond, the front door opened. Matt walked in, saw the TV, and froze. "What is that?" "The truth," I said. He lunged for the camera, but I was faster, grabbing it first. "Turn it off," he screamed. "That's private." Mom stood shakily, pushing his hand away. "Stop, Matt." He stared at her, shocked. "Just stop." For the first time, she looked at him the way she should have been looking at him all along, with clarity. Over the next 2 weeks, I gathered everything: statements, medical records, the video, and witness testimonies. Claire organized it into an airtight case. The day of the hearing arrived cold and gray. I wore Dad's old watch for courage. Matt arrived at the courthouse in a suit, confident and smug. He thought this was a formality. He thought he'd already won. The judge, a stern woman named Judge Harris, reviewed the case file before looking up. "This is a petition to invalidate a will based on undue influence and financial exploitation," she said. "Let's proceed." Claire stood first, laying out the timeline. Dad's original will, the missing signature page, Mom's cognitive decline, Matt's frequent bank visits, the failed POA attempt. Matt's lawyer tried to interrupt, but Judge Harris raised a hand. "I'll hear the evidence first." Then Claire played the video. The courtroom went silent. Dad's voice filled the space, clear and undeniable. Matt's face drained of color. His lawyer whispered urgently in his ear. Judge Harris leaned forward. "Is this recording authenticated?" "Yes, Your Honor." "Time-stamped and verified." The judge nodded slowly, her gaze shifting to Matt. "I see." The accountant testified next, describing the irregular withdrawals and paperwork changes. The bank teller confirmed Matt's frequent cash withdrawals. Dr. Peters explained Mom's cognitive state. Matt's lawyer tried to argue that the will was signed voluntarily, but every piece of evidence dismantled his defense. Finally, Judge Harris looked directly at Matt. "Mr. Carter, can you explain why you attempted to file a power of attorney without your mother's full understanding?" Matt stammered. I was trying to help her. By controlling her finances without oversight. She needed help. And the withdrawals. Tens of thousands of dollars. Those were for expenses." "What expenses?" Silence. Judge Harris set down her pen. "Based on the evidence presented, the video testimony, the medical evaluation, the financial records, and the pattern of control, I find clear and convincing proof of undue influence." Matt stood abruptly. "This is ridiculous." "Sit down, Mr. Carter," Judge Harris said coldly. "The will executed under these circumstances is hereby declared invalid. The original will, as intended by the deceased, is reinstated." The courtroom erupted. Matt's lawyer tried to object, but it was over. Judge Harris continued. "Furthermore, Mr. Carter, you are ordered to repay all unauthorized withdrawals to your mother's account. Failure to comply will result in further legal action." Matt stared at me, stunned and furious. I felt nothing but relief. Outside the courtroom, Matt cornered me in the hallway, eyes wild. "Fix this," he demanded. "You have to fix this." "I didn't break it, Matt." "You did." "Emily, please. You lied to Mom. You stole from her. You tried to erase me. I just wanted what I deserved." "You got what you deserved," I said quietly. "Consequences." He stared at me, realizing I wasn't going to save him. Then he turned and walked away, shoulders slumped, every bit of arrogance gone. Mom stood near the courtroom doors, looking small and fragile. I walked over slowly. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have listened. You were vulnerable, Mom. He used that." She nodded, tears in her eyes. "Can you forgive me?" I thought about it, about the pain, the betrayal, the humiliation. Then I thought about Dad's video and the way Mom slipped me that envelope. "We'll rebuild," I said. "But it has to be honest this time." She hugged me tightly, and for the first time in months it felt real. The process of restoring the estate took weeks. Matt was required to repay over $40,000 in unauthorized withdrawals. His access to Mom's accounts was permanently revoked. Claire worked with the probate court to reinstate Dad's original will. Everything was split equally, just as he intended. Mom moved forward with the help of a financial advisor and medical support. She started remembering things more clearly without Matt's constant manipulation. I didn't gloat. I didn't need to. The truth was its own victory. One afternoon I stood in Dad's old workshop, the same shed where I found the video. The space smelled like sawdust and old memories. I picked up one of his tools, a hammer he used to let me hold when I was small. "I kept my promise, Dad," I whispered. "I fought clean, fought smart, and I won." The sunlight streamed through the window, warm and steady. For the first time in months I felt peace. Matt moved out of state a few months later. He called once to apologize, but the words felt hollow, rehearsed. I didn't need his apology. I needed him gone. Mom and I started rebuilding our relationship slowly. Trust doesn't heal overnight, but we were trying. We had dinners together, talked about Dad, and worked through the pain he left behind. The inheritance wasn't about money anymore. It was about dignity, truth, and honoring the man who raised me to fight for what was right. I used part of my share to start a small fund in Dad's name, helping families navigate estate disputes and financial abuse. Felt like the best way to honor him. Some people thought I should have walked away, let it go, chosen peace over justice. But peace without truth isn't peace. It's silence. And I was done being silent. 1 year later, I stood in the cemetery where Dad was buried. The gravestone was simple, just his name and the dates that bookend his life. I placed flowers on the grave. Tulips, his favorite. "I did it," I said quietly. "I made sure your wishes were honored. I made sure the truth won." The wind rustled the trees, and I imagined him smiling, proud and relieved. Mom joined me a few minutes later. We stood side by side in silence, two women who'd been broken and rebuilt by the same fight. "Thank you," she said softly, "for not giving up on him, on me." "Family is supposed to protect each other," I replied, "not destroy each other." She nodded, wiping her eyes. "I won't forget that again." We walked back to the car together, the weight of the past year lifting slightly with every step. Justice doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just signs papers and walks away quietly. And sometimes that's enough. Now, when I think about that dinner, the moment Mom said I'd get nothing, I don't feel anger anymore. Feel gratitude. That moment woke me up, forced me to fight. It taught me I was stronger than I ever knew. I didn't just win an inheritance. I won my voice, my dignity, and my father's legacy. I proved that truth, no matter how buried, always finds its way to the surface. Matt thought he could rewrite history. Mom thought guilt and confusion would silence her. But I refused to disappear. If you've ever been erased, dismissed, or told you don't matter, know this, you do. Your voice matters. Your truth matters. And sometimes, the greatest act of love is refusing to stay silent. I asked my mother one question and it changed everything. Not because the question was magic, but because I refused to accept a lie as truth. Family isn't just blood. It's honesty, respect, and showing up when it matters. I showed up. And I won.